A little girl finally found the courage to speak up in court against the man who had made her life a nightmare, her own stepfather. But less than 24 hours after testifying, she vanished without a trace. Even more disturbing, her court statement disappeared too. The only clue left behind was a blurry CCTV video showing who took her, and the person caught on tape was someone no one expected. What really happened to her? This is her story, told piece by piece. Rain drizzled lightly on the courthouse steps that Tuesday morning, just enough to mist the windows and blur the figures waiting outside. The courthouse doors swung open sharply, and a small girl, thin frame, tight ponytail, trembling hands, stepped out, clutching her mother's coat sleeve with one hand and a folded statement in the other. Her name was Emily Carter, 14 years old. She had just testified against her stepfather, Robert Jensen, a respected fire marshal in a small Minnesota town. Emily didn't say much in the courtroom, but what she did say, it was enough to freeze everyone inside. "He came into my room at night," she whispered on the stand, barely audible. "Did you tell anyone before this?" the judge asked. Emily nodded slowly. "My mom didn't believe me." Gasps and murmurs filled the courtroom. Her mother, Linda, sat frozen, her eyes wide, mouth trembling. Robert's defense attorney objected, but it was too late. The statement was in the record. When they left the courthouse, reporters hovered like flies. Emily lowered her head, letting her hood shield her from the flash of cameras. She didn't speak as they got into a beat-up gray Honda. Her mother said nothing either. The car door slammed, tires screeched against wet pavement, and they drove away. That night, Emily slept on the couch in their two-bedroom apartment. Linda stayed in her room and barely spoke a word. Emily had only a backpack beside her. She didn't unpack. She didn't brush her teeth. She sat there, fully dressed, staring at the living room window like she was waiting for something, or someone. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the quiet neighborhood. Birds chirped outside. A postal truck rolled past. Inside the apartment, Emily was gone. The front door was unlocked, her backpack still leaning against the couch. No note. No noise. No signs of struggle, just silence. At first, Linda assumed Emily had walked to the nearby gas station to buy her favorite soda. But hours passed. Her phone rang again and again, voicemail. Panic set in. By noon, she called the police. "She's missing," Linda said breathlessly. I woke up and she wasn't here. Detective Marcus Dean, a seasoned officer with 16 years of service, was assigned the case. He interviewed Linda first. "What time did you last see her?" "Last night around 11. She was sleeping on the couch. I thought she was safe." "Was the door locked?" "I thought it was, I really did." Marcus scribbled notes furiously. He'd seen runaways before, but something about this felt off. No trace of her, after the biggest testimony of her life. Back at the precinct, Marcus checked traffic cams, public building security, and anything he could get his hands on. Nothing. Until late that night, when a shaky convenience store owner named Luis Ortega brought in a USB stick. "You should see this," he muttered. The footage was grainy and dark, recorded from the gas station 3 blocks away. It showed Emily walking past the station at 2:13 a.m. She didn't look scared, but she did glance over her shoulder every few steps. Then at 2:15 a.m. a car pulled up. Not just any car, a white SUV. The driver opened the passenger door. Emily hesitated, then got in. The car drove off. Marcus leaned in. "Can you zoom on the driver?" Luis did his best. The screen flickered. And there it was, a face, not clear. Not clean, but just enough to make your stomach drop. It wasn't Robert. It wasn't her mother. It wasn't even someone the precinct had on file. But it was someone they all knew. Marcus's face went pale. "No, that can't be." He immediately called for a trace on the license plate, but the image was too blurry to make out the numbers. They ran facial recognition on the driver's outline, nothing conclusive. By the following morning, things got worse. Emily's court testimony had vanished from the official records. Gone. The clerk who recorded the audio said there was a technical failure. No backup files. No transcript, no record of her words. What about the physical statement she submitted? Marcus asked. The clerk stared back, confused. There was no statement. Marcus pulled his notes from the trial. Emily had been holding something in her hands when she exited the courtroom, a folded document. But when they searched her apartment, it wasn't there. No one had seen her holding it again after they left the courthouse. And her mother, she swore she hadn't touched anything. Detective Marcus was furious. He ordered the judge's chambers checked, the courthouse lockers, the legal archives. Nothing. It was like Emily Carter had opened her mouth for a moment, screamed in a courtroom of people, and then every echo of her voice had been vacuumed out of existence. Marcus returned to the gas station that evening. Luis had been watching the footage over and over. "Do you think she got in that car willingly?" he asked. "I don't know yet," Marcus muttered. "But I think someone made sure she didn't have a choice." The town began to whisper. Speculation swirled like a tornado. Did Robert send someone to silence her? Was her mother involved? Could it be someone in law enforcement? Someone inside the court? But Marcus couldn't speak. Not yet, not until he found the girl. Not until he figured out how a courtroom full of people could all be present when a child screamed, and not a single piece of proof was left behind. That night, Marcus pinned the blurry CCTV screenshot to his office wall. Just one image, one grainy gray photo, of Emily getting into a car with someone no one expected, and vanished. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today, and what time you are currently watching this video. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. Detective Marcus Dean couldn't sleep. It was 3:28 in the morning, and he sat at his small kitchen table with cold coffee in hand, staring at the blurry printout of the CCTV screenshot. Emily Carter's face was half turned to the camera, eyes wide, body frozen mid-step as she climbed into the white SUV. Her face looked calm, too calm. Something about it haunted him. He returned to the precinct early that morning and walked straight to his captain's office. "I need access to every vehicle registration in the county. Any white SUVs within the last 5 years." Captain Rollins narrowed his eyes. "That's over 3,000 vehicles. I'll go through them all, one by one." Rollins sighed, rubbed his temples, then finally nodded. "You've got 48 hours. After that, we hand this to state investigations." Marcus didn't respond. He had no intention of letting this case go. He'd been an officer too long to ignore the smell of something rotten. By noon, Marcus was already knee-deep in registrations. His desk was stacked with files. His eyes scanned photos, VIN numbers, plate variations. Nothing. He broke only once, to take a call from Emily's school. She was a quiet student, said her homeroom teacher, Mrs. Gaines, but smart, always did her work, always early. Did she talk to anyone about the trial? There was a pause. She mentioned something last week. Said if anything happened to her, there was a notebook in her locker. Marcus was out the door before she finished speaking. The school was quiet that day. Summer break had started. The halls smelled like floor wax and dust. A janitor led him into locker 118. It creaked open slowly. There was only one item inside, a spiral notebook with a blue cover. He flipped through it carefully. Math notes, doodles. And then, tucked between 2 pages, a folded letter with Emily's neat handwriting. "If you're reading this, I probably said something I wasn't supposed to. If anything happens to me, check the cameras at the Green Line storage facility on East 5th. I saw him there, I followed him. I shouldn't have, but I needed to know if what he said to me was true." Marcus's heartbeat quickened. He grabbed his keys and was in his car within minutes, racing across town. The Green Line storage facility sat in a forgotten part of the city. Rows of metal storage units stretched along a cracked parking lot, weeds growing between the lines. A middle-aged man in a neon vest stood by the office, sipping from a can of soda. Marcus flashed his badge. "Need your camera footage from 2 nights ago." Around 2 a.m., the man raised an eyebrow. "Something happened?" "You could say that." Inside, the man pulled up the footage on an old computer. The security system was grainy but functional. Marcus watched the footage closely. At 2:04 a.m., a white SUV pulled into frame. It stopped at Unit 207. A man stepped out. Medium height, dark hoodie, baseball cap pulled low. He opened the storage unit, looked around, then reached into the back of the SUV and carried something inside. Something wrapped in a blanket. Marcus leaned forward. "Rewind that." Lower. The man rewound. Marcus squinted at the screen. The face was hard to see, but there was something familiar in the way he moved. shoulders hunched, left leg dragging slightly. Marcus knew someone who walked like that. Sergeant Bill Trent, a former colleague, retired 6 months ago, one of the most respected officers in the department, loved by the community, always first to volunteer for tough assignments. But Marcus remembered one thing about Bill. He used to limp, an old bullet injury from a domestic call gone bad. Marcus didn't say a word. He copied the footage onto a USB and drove straight to Bill Trent's home. He didn't call ahead, didn't request backup. He needed to look Bill in the eyes. The house sat at the end of a quiet street with trimmed hedges and wind chimes that danced in the warm summer breeze. The lights were off, blinds drawn. Marcus knocked hard, no answer. He tried again, still nothing. He stepped back and walked around the side of the house. A garden hose lay coiled on the ground. The back door was slightly open. "Bill," Marcus called out. "It's Marcus. I need to ask you something." No response. He stepped inside. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and coffee. He walked slowly, his hand resting near his holster. A photo of Bill and his wife sat on the mantel. They'd divorced 2 years ago. He passed the kitchen, scanned the hallway, then noticed something. The garage door was open. Inside the garage sat a white SUV. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. He stepped closer, no license plates. He peered into the back seat. A long dark hair was caught in the doorframe. He didn't touch it. He pulled out his phone and took a photo. Then he turned and froze. Bill Trent was standing at the other end of the hallway, gun in hand. He looked older than Marcus remembered. Tired, but steady. "You shouldn't be here, Marcus." Marcus held up both hands. "Put the gun down. We can talk." Bill shook his head slowly. "I told her not to follow me." "Where is she?" "I didn't hurt her," Bill said. His voice cracked. "Then where is she?" Bill stepped forward, finger still on the trigger. His eyes were bloodshot. "She was going to blow it all open. Everything we worked to protect." She didn't understand. She was just a kid. "What did you do?" Marcus's voice rose. "What did you do, Bill?" "I tried to keep her safe," he whispered. Suddenly he dropped the gun. It hit the floor with a heavy clunk. Marcus rushed forward and kicked it aside, then grabbed his cuffs. "You're under arrest." Bill didn't resist. He just stared at the floor. As Marcus read him his rights, his mind raced. What did Bill mean by everything we worked to protect? Why was a retired officer suddenly tied to a missing girl's case? And why had he said Emily followed him? To where and why? As he drove Bill back to the precinct, one thing became clear. This story was far from over. Detective Marcus Dean sat across from Bill Trent, watching the man sit in total silence. It was 5:37 a.m., and the interrogation room buzzed with fluorescent light and tension so thick you could feel it in your throat. Bill's hands were cuffed, resting on the metal table. His head hung low. His gray hair looked even more silver in the pale light. The room smelled faintly of sweat and cheap coffee. Marcus leaned forward. "Start talking, Bill. Where is Emily Carter?" Bill didn't answer right away. His eyes stared down at the table, like there was something written there only he could see. "I didn't take her to hurt her," he said finally. "You need to understand that." "Then why did you sneak her into a storage unit in the middle of the night?" Bill's jaw tightened. "She followed me. She saw something she wasn't supposed to. I didn't have a choice." "You didn't have a choice?" Marcus's voice grew sharp. "You're a grown man, Bill. A trained officer. She's a 14-year-old girl." Bill's hands clenched into fists. "She had proof. She was going to bring it to the press. She said she found names, files, old case reports." Marcus frowned. "What files?" Bill looked up. His eyes were tired, dark. "Robert Jensen isn't just some abusive stepfather. He's connected." "Connected to what?" "To us," Bill said, his voice low. "To people we worked with, cops, judges, city officials. Emily found out. I don't know how, but she did." Marcus sat back, stunned. He thought back to Emily's testimony. How scared she looked. Not just scared of her stepfather, but of something bigger. Something she couldn't even say out loud. Bill kept talking. "She came to my house 2 days before the trial. Said she didn't trust anyone. Said someone erased part of her first written statement from the case file. She thought someone inside the system was helping Robert." Marcus stared. "That's why she hid the note in her locker," he muttered. Bill nodded. "She followed me to Green Line because she thought I was involved. I was there checking something, a box I left years ago. When I saw her, I panicked. I told her to get in the car. I didn't know what else to do. Where is she now? Marcus asked again. I left her with someone I trust. Someone I knew would keep her off the grid. Safer that way. I'll tell you, but I want immunity. Marcus slammed the table. This isn't a negotiation. A girl is missing. Her court statement vanished, and the only footage of her shows her getting into your car. You don't get to ask for immunity. Bill didn't flinch. She's alive. That's what matters. But if I talk, the people involved will come after me. And you're in deeper than you realize. 2 hours later, Captain Rollins stood in Marcus's office, face red with frustration. Let me get this straight, he said. You think there's a hidden group inside our own department? Helping Jensen? Helping cover this up? Marcus nodded. Bill's not lying. There's a pattern. Jensen was never arrested despite 3 past reports. Each one was dismissed within 48 hours. One of the girls moved states. Another ended up in juvie. And the third? That was Emily, Captain Rollins paced. Do you have names? Not yet, but I think Emily did. Rollins sighed. You need to find her. Fast. If she's holding any real evidence, they'll want her gone. Marcus didn't waste time. He got a warrant to search Bill Trent's storage unit at Green Line. A forensic team met him there. The air inside was stale and hot. Dust clung to the floor. Most of the boxes were old, labeled with faded marker, photos, papers, retirement. But one stood out, a black plastic crate with no label. Marcus opened it. Inside were folders, dozens of them, old case files. Some yellowed, some crisp, each one marked with initials. Victims' names, closed investigations. He pulled one file out. The name on the tab stopped him cold. El Mendez. Age 13, case closed, unfounded claim. But inside the file were photos. Black and white, stills from a hospital visit. A police report with entire sections redacted. A counselor's note that said, disclosure confirmed. Risk level high. Marcus's stomach turned. He flipped through more files. K. Dorsey. Age 12, T. Martin, age 15. Dozens of them, all girls, all dismissed. All with Robert Jensen listed somewhere, either as a responder, a step relative, or just a name mentioned in passing. Marcus realized what Emily had discovered, and why she was scared. These weren't just coincidences. They were patterns, a system, one that protected Robert and probably others like him. That evening, Marcus returned to Bill. You're going to tell me who's hiding Emily. Right now, Bill hesitated, then he gave a name. Lori Kendrick, Marcus blinked. The old nurse from Pine Ridge? She runs a private care home outside of town. She's been helping victims for years. Off the books, nobody knows about it. Emily's with her. Marcus didn't wait. He grabbed his keys and drove straight out to Pine Ridge, headlights slicing through early evening fog. The road twisted through the woods until finally, a small house appeared at the end of a gravel drive. A single light glowed in the window. Marcus knocked twice. A woman in her 60s opened the door. Gray hair, kind eyes, a slow limp. You're early, she said. He blinked. What? She stepped aside. She's in the back room. Marcus stepped inside. The hallway was narrow. The air smelled like lavender and old books. Wooden floorboards creaked under his shoes. Then he reached the end of the hallway and opened the door. And there she was, Emily Carter, alive, sitting on a bed, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes wide as he entered. She didn't say anything, neither did he. He just sat down slowly on the edge of the bed. And for the first time since she vanished, someone finally said her name out loud. Emily, you're safe now, but Emily shook her head. No, I'm not. Her voice was barely a whisper. They know I'm here. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today and what time you are currently watching this video. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. Detective Marcus Dean didn't waste a second. The moment Emily said, "They know I'm here," he stood up, closed the door gently, and turned to Lori Kendrick. "Is there a back exit?" he asked quickly. Lori nodded. "Yes, through the kitchen. What's going on?" "No time to explain. We need to move now." Emily didn't ask questions. She grabbed her sneakers and followed. Her face was pale but focused. She knew something was coming. So did Marcus. The three of them hurried down the hallway. Outside, the trees stood motionless in the still air. No wind, no movement. But the silence wasn't peaceful, it was heavy. Marcus led them into the kitchen, opened the back door, and paused. Headlights. A black SUV slowly rolled into the gravel driveway. Then another vehicle pulled in behind it, this one tinted windows, no plates. Marcus cursed under his breath. "Get down," he shouted, pulling his handgun from his holster. Lori grabbed Emily's hand and ducked behind the kitchen counter. Marcus moved to the edge of the back door and peered around the corner. 3 men stepped out of the first SUV. They were dressed in all black, no uniforms, no badges. One of them held a shotgun. Another had a radio clipped to his belt. "These aren't regular cops," Marcus muttered. He counted quietly 3 outside, maybe more in the second vehicle. He had his service weapon, 15 rounds. Not enough for a fight, but enough to buy time. The men moved quickly, splitting up, 1 toward the front door, 2 toward the side of the house. Then came the sound of glass breaking. Marcus moved fast. "Emily, stay low." "Lori, take her to the basement and lock the door behind you. Don't come out until I say." Lori hesitated for only a second before nodding. "Be careful." The moment they disappeared down the basement steps, Marcus slipped through the back door and crouched near the corner of the house. His breath was steady, but his pulse hammered in his neck. One of the men rounded the edge of the garage, shotgun in hand, looking relaxed, too relaxed. Marcus didn't hesitate. 1 shot, center mass. The man dropped instantly, his weapon clattering on the gravel. That was enough to alert the others. Gunfire cracked in the air. 1 round hit the siding near Marcus's head. Another slammed into the garden shed behind him. He returned fire, ducked low, and sprinted toward a large oak tree at the back of the property. He crouched behind it, gasping, thinking. He didn't know who these men were yet. Mercenaries? Dirty ex-cops? Whoever they were, they came ready, and they weren't here to arrest Emily. They were here to erase her. Suddenly, one of the men called out, "We don't want the cop, just the girl." "Hand her over and this ends," Marcus shouted back. "She's not going anywhere. You want her. Come take her." They did. 2 of them rushed toward the back porch, firing blindly. The wooden railing splintered. Marcus rolled and fired back, hitting one in the leg. The man went down screaming, dropping his handgun. That's when the 3rd man came from the side, fast and silent. Marcus barely saw him in time. He turned, blocked a strike, and the 2 fell hard onto the dirt. The attacker tried to wrestle Marcus's gun away. They rolled, fists slamming, knees into ribs. Then a shot, the man collapsed. Marcus shoved him off and looked up. Lori Kendrick stood at the basement door, a small revolver in her hand, face pale, eyes wide but steady. "You all right?" she asked. Marcus nodded, breathing hard. "I owe you one. Let's just make sure she lives long enough to make this worth it." They didn't wait. Marcus found the keys to the second SUV, still in the ignition. He searched the glove compartment, found a burner phone, and a GPS unit. No name, no ID. Emily climbed into the back seat, still shaken but alert. Lori got in beside her. As Marcus pulled away from the house, he glanced at Emily in the rearview mirror. "Tell me everything you know," she nodded slowly. "It started after my first report. I told a school counselor about Robert. She believed me, helped me write everything down. We submitted it. But nothing happened," Marcus added. Emily looked out the window, her voice small. "The counselor went missing 2 weeks later. They said she took a job in Oregon, but her phone was off. Her apartment was still full of stuff. I knew something was wrong." Marcus's jaw clenched. Emily continued. "So I started looking. I broke into Robert's room one day while he was gone. He kept a locked drawer. I found a key. Inside was a USB drive and a folder full of photos, names, dates." "What was on the USB?" Marcus asked. Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. "Videos of other girls, some I recognized, all talking about him, crying. Some were begging to stop." Lori gasped. "I didn't know what to do," Emily said. "So I copied it, hid the original under the floorboard in my room, gave the copy to the court. That's what I was holding when I left. But it disappeared," Marcus said. "They took it. Before I even got home, someone had already searched the apartment. They were fast." Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. His hands were shaking now. "I think I know who's helping him," Emily said suddenly. There was a name on one of the files. The initials DK. It was next to a folder labeled cleanup. Marcus' blood ran cold. Deputy Chief Daniel Knox, one of the top-ranking officers in the department, always clean, always political, untouchable. He was the one who shut down Marcus's initial search requests, the one who delayed access to Robert Jensen's sealed reports. Marcus didn't say it aloud, but he knew. They were dealing with something bigger than just a dirty stepfather. This was a network. They drove for hours, changing roads, ditching their phones, avoiding main highways. Marcus knew they couldn't go back to town, not yet. By midnight, they reached an old hunting cabin in the woods, a place Marcus's uncle had once owned. Isolated, off-grid, no cell reception. It would have to do. As they settled in, Marcus looked at the people around him. Emily, a girl too brave for her years. Lori, a woman who had seen too much pain. And himself, a cop caught between duty and truth. He sat at the table, reloaded his weapon, and finally asked the question he'd been dreading. "Emily, do you still have the original USB?" She nodded slowly. "I never told anyone. Not even my mom. It's still under the floorboard, behind the loose tile near my bed." Marcus leaned back. He knew what had to happen next. They needed to go back into the lion's den. The old hunting cabin creaked in the wind, surrounded by trees so thick they blocked out most of the moonlight. Inside, Detective Marcus Dean sat at a small wooden table, staring at a map he'd drawn by hand. Emily slept on a mattress in the corner. Lori Kendrick stood by the window, watching the woods. "We have to go back," Marcus whispered. Lori didn't turn around. "You're risking both your badge and your life." "I know," he said, "but if we don't get that USB, everything she testified will be lost forever, and the people who want her gone will win." The plan was simple: get back into Emily's apartment, grab the USB from under the floorboard, and disappear again before anyone noticed. But Marcus knew better. Simple plans never stayed simple. They left the cabin just before sunrise. Emily rode in the back seat of the SUV, silent, hugging her knees. She looked out the window at the passing trees. Her hands shook slightly, but her eyes were clear. "I want to be the one to get it," she said suddenly. Marcus looked at her through the rearview mirror. "Emily, it's my room, my hiding place. I'll be faster," he nodded slowly. She was right. She knew every inch of that room. And she'd hidden the drive better than most adults would. By noon, they were back in town. They parked 3 blocks from the apartment complex to avoid attention. Marcus checked his gun, made sure the clip was full. Lori stayed behind with the car, while Marcus and Emily slipped through the back alley toward her building. The complex was quiet, too quiet. The main gate had a broken lock hanging off it. Emily noticed it first. "It wasn't like that before," she whispered. Marcus's heart pounded harder. He scanned the windows above. No movement. No voices. Still, he motioned for Emily to stay low. They moved quickly, keeping their backs to the wall. When they reached her unit on the 2nd floor, Marcus tested the door. Unlocked, he drew his weapon. "Stay behind me," he whispered. They stepped inside. The apartment looked normal at first glance. Sofa, kitchen, television. But something was wrong. The air smelled off like stale sweat and cheap cologne. A chair was knocked over. A drawer was half open. Marcus moved forward slowly, gun raised. Emily crept behind him, her eyes locked on the hallway to her room. Then a soft creak from the bedroom. Someone was in there. Marcus whispered, "Get ready to run." He stepped forward, kicked the door open, and there he was, a man in dark clothes crouching near the floorboard. Marcus didn't wait. "Police, don't move." The man lunged toward the nightstand. Marcus fired once into the wall beside the man's head. The intruder froze. But then a second man appeared in the doorway behind Marcus, slamming into him hard. The gun fell from Marcus's hand and skidded under the bed. Emily screamed. Marcus threw his elbow into the attacker's ribs, twisted, and tackled him to the ground. They rolled, fists flying, knees slamming into hardwood. The first man grabbed Emily by the wrist and dragged her toward the hallway. "Let me go," she yelled, kicking wildly. Marcus broke free, grabbed the lamp from the nightstand, and slammed it into the man's back. He collapsed instantly. The second man reached for something. Marcus didn't see what, but Emily did. She dove under the bed, grabbed Marcus's gun, and threw it to him. Marcus caught it midair, one shot. The second man dropped. Silence returned. Emily stood there, breathing hard. Her wrist was red where she'd been grabbed, but she was okay. Get the drive, Marcus said, eyes still on the bodies. She rushed to the corner of the room, pulled back the loose tile, and reached into the floor. She pulled out a small plastic case. "It's here," she whispered. Marcus exhaled for the first time in minutes. They didn't wait. Back through the apartment, down the stairs. Marcus grabbed a phone from one of the attacker's pockets and took it with him. When they reached the car, Lori's eyes widened. "What happened?" Marcus held up the USB. They knew where it was. "We have to go," Lori said. "Now." They drove to a different part of the city, a rundown warehouse that Marcus once used for evidence drop-offs during undercover cases. It was off the books, forgotten. Inside, Marcus plugged the USB into a secure laptop. Videos, documents, emails. One folder was labeled DK Direct Orders, another Court Seal Overrides. He scrolled faster. There were videos of young girls giving statements, some from years ago. Names matched the case files Marcus had seen at Bill Trent's unit, and the emails, messages between Deputy Chief Daniel Knox and several judges, lawyers, and even local business owners. The corruption ran deep, but Marcus focused on one thing, a file labeled Plan Alpha, Witness Erasure. It was a checklist. Emily's name was on it. Beside her name, status in progress, location secured. Handler RJ. Then another name appeared. L. Kendrick, high threat. M. Dean, monitor closely. "They knew about all of us," Marcus said. "Even you, Lori." She didn't look surprised. "I've been a threat to men like that for a long time." Emily stared at the screen. "We can take this to the press, right? Or the FBI." "We could," Marcus said. "But once this goes public, we'll all be targets. We have to be smart." Lori stood and locked the warehouse door. "Then we do it our way." Marcus copied the files onto 3 separate flash drives, one for the FBI, one for a trusted news outlet, and one backup just in case. Then the phone he took from the attacker buzzed. "Unknown number, package failed. Proceed with fallback." "Fallback?" Marcus muttered. Then a second message came through. "Take the cop, make the girl vanish." He looked at Emily. "They're not stopping." Emily stared back. "I'm not either." Gunshots shattered the warehouse windows. Marcus dove, pulling Emily down. Lori flipped the table for cover. Outside, headlights appeared, several vehicles. Engines roared. They were surrounded. "Get ready," Marcus said, raising his gun. "This time we fight back." Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today and what time you are currently watching this video. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. Gunfire shattered the warehouse windows. The sharp cracks echoed like thunder in the concrete walls. Marcus Dean didn't hesitate. He yanked Emily to the ground behind an overturned metal table. Broken glass rained down. Lori Kendrick ducked beside them, pulling her revolver from her coat pocket. "We're pinned," Marcus muttered. 3 vehicles. I count at least 6 men. Emily's eyes were wide, but she didn't scream. She didn't freeze. She gritted her teeth and nodded. "What do we do? Survive?" Another shot rang out, slamming into the filing cabinet behind them. A second round tore through a stack of old cardboard boxes in the corner. "They're trying to flush us out," Lori said. "And they won't stop until we're either dead or gone." Marcus looked around. They had limited ammo. His Glock had 8 rounds left. Lori's revolver had 5. Emily didn't have a weapon, but she had guts, and right now that meant something. "We hold them off just long enough," Marcus said. "Then we move." "To where?" Emily asked. "There's a trapdoor behind the old desk in the office. Leads to a storm drain. It's our only shot." A bullet whizzed past and struck the metal wall beside them. The attackers were getting closer. Marcus looked at Lori. "Cover me." She nodded and popped up for a split second, firing 2 shots. One man ducked, the other hit the ground. Marcus didn't wait. He sprinted toward the back room, bullets chasing his heels. He dove behind the desk, yanked it aside, and found the old latch. Rusted but intact, he pulled it open. A dark tunnel stared back at him. "It's clear," he yelled. Lori grabbed Emily's hand and ran. Emily slid through the trapdoor first, then Lori. Marcus fired one last shot toward the warehouse entrance, then jumped down and pulled the door closed above him. Darkness swallowed them. For a few seconds, the only sound was their breathing. Then came the banging. "They found the trapdoor," Marcus said. "We've got seconds." He pulled out his flashlight and led them through the narrow tunnel. Water dripped from the ceiling. The air smelled like rust and mildew. Rats skittered ahead of them. Emily clung to Laurie's hand, her footsteps echoing behind Marcus's. "Where does this lead?" she asked. "There's a maintenance hatch at the end," he said. "About 2 blocks south. If we make it there, we can blend into the neighborhood." They moved fast. Every second felt like an hour. Behind them, the trapdoor finally gave in with a loud crack. "They're coming," Laurie said. Marcus picked up the pace. The tunnel began to slope upward. Finally, after what felt like forever, he spotted a metal grate above their heads. He climbed up, pushed, and the grate popped open. Sunlight. They were in an alleyway behind a closed-down supermarket. One by one, they climbed out, Emily first, then Laurie. Marcus followed and quickly closed the grate behind them. He grabbed a nearby dumpster and slid it over the hatch. "Let's move." They blended into the neighborhood quickly. Marcus took them through backyards, over fences, and down alleys. Every noise made them flinch: car doors, barking dogs, footsteps behind them. They couldn't trust anyone. Not yet. Finally, they reached a small, beat-up house near the edge of town. Marcus knocked 3 times, then paused, then knocked twice more. The door opened. A tall woman in her late 50s stood there, eyes sharp, no questions asked. "Get in," she said. Her name was Valerie. She was a retired federal clerk Marcus knew from an old case. She owed him a favor, and she knew how to keep things quiet. Inside, the house was modest, smelled like wood polish and old carpet. Marcus led Emily and Laurie into a back room. "We can rest here for an hour," he said. "Then we make our move." Emily looked at him, exhausted. "What move?" Marcus pulled out one of the USB copies. "We're going to the press." "You trust them?" Laurie asked. "Not all of them," he replied. "But there's one reporter, Evan Reese. Investigative journalist. Doesn't play by the rules. He's been trying to uncover a corruption ring inside the city for years. This might be what he needs." Suddenly, Valerie ran into the room. "They found you," she whispered. "There's a car out front, black. Tinted windows, men with earpieces." Marcus's blood ran cold. "They tracked the flash drive," he muttered. "Maybe the burner phone, doesn't matter." He grabbed the USB and shoved it into Emily's hand. "You know the plan, run if I fall. Don't stop." "No," she said. "We stay together." But the sound of boots stomping onto the front porch silenced everyone. Valerie pulled a shotgun from under the couch and cocked it. "They want to fight? They'll get one." Gunfire ripped through the front door. Marcus shoved the table over and ducked behind it. Laurie opened the back door and returned fire into the alley. Marcus popped up, fired 2 quick shots. One attacker went down screaming. Another dove behind a car. Emily crawled behind the hallway, clutching the flash drive. Valerie fired from the kitchen. One blast knocked a man backward through the screen door. More bullets smashed the windows. "They're all over," Laurie yelled. 4, maybe 5, Marcus fired again. "We have to move." Valerie was hit. Her shoulder exploded in a spray of blood. She dropped to the ground, screaming. Marcus grabbed her arm and dragged her behind cover. "You're going to be okay." "No," she gasped. "Go. Don't let them take her." Emily ran to the back door. Marcus and Laurie followed. Another gunman appeared in the alley. He raised his weapon, too slow. Laurie shot first. He crumpled to the ground. They ran. Down the alley, through yards, over fences. Dogs barked. Neighbors stared. A police siren wailed in the distance, but Marcus knew better. Those weren't real cops. By the time they reached the edge of town, night had fallen. They hid in a dry culvert behind a church. No one said anything for several minutes. Emily finally whispered, "We can't keep running." Marcus nodded. "You're right." He pulled out an old prepaid phone. "No guess. No trace." He dialed a number from memory. "Evan Reese," said the voice on the other end. "It's Dean. I have something big. Life or death." Pause. "Where do we meet?" Marcus looked at Emily, then at the flash drive in her hand. "Somewhere public. Somewhere no one would expect." The next morning, the city stirred to life like any other day. Cars filled the streets, horns blared, people rushed to work, all unaware that a single flash drive in the hands of a missing girl could burn the entire system to the ground. Emily Carter sat in the back seat of a nondescript silver sedan parked at the far corner of a bustling public park. She wore a hoodie pulled over her head, sunglasses on her face. She looked nothing like the terrified girl who had vanished days ago. She looked ready. Detective Marcus Dean sat in the driver's seat, hands gripping the steering wheel tight. Lori Kendrick was in the passenger seat, eyes scanning the park like a hawk. A food truck across the field, joggers on the trail, a man with a stroller. Any one of them could be watching. Any one of them could be a threat. "You sure about this meeting spot?" Lori asked. Marcus nodded. Evan picked it. Said we'd be safest in public. Cameras everywhere. Too many witnesses for them to act fast. "And if they don't care about witnesses?" Emily asked, her voice low. Marcus didn't answer. At 9:07 a.m., a man in a gray blazer and jeans walked up the path holding a cup of coffee. He didn't look around, didn't wave. Just sat on a nearby bench and placed a newspaper on the seat next to him. That was the signal. "Go," Marcus said. "I'll watch your back." Emily stepped out of the car, her heart pounding in her chest. The flash drive was tucked deep in her jeans pocket. She walked slowly, feeling every pair of eyes that might be on her. She approached the man on the bench. "Evan Reese," she asked softly. He nodded. "You must be Emily." She sat beside him and handed him the flash drive, her fingers trembling. "This is everything," she said. "Names, videos, emails. It proves what they've done." Evan slipped the drive into his coat pocket without even looking at it. "I believe you," he said, "but this is going to shake the city. You know that, right?" "They deserve it," she whispered. "Every last one of them." Suddenly, across the street, a black van pulled to a stop. Marcus's voice crackled in the tiny earpiece Emily wore. "Emily, move now," Evan grabbed her arm. "Let's go." From the van, two men in suits stepped out. They weren't dressed like mercenaries this time. They wore city badges, officials, untouchable. One of them spotted Emily and shouted, "There she is!" Emily and Evan bolted. They ran through the park, weaving between people. The crowd slowed their pursuers, but not for long. Marcus and Lori jumped out of the car and sprinted to intercept. Marcus shouted, "Get to the museum entrance. Security's tight. They won't follow inside." Emily and Evan dashed toward the old city museum near the fountain. A line of tourists blocked the front door. Evan yelled, "Emergency! Let us through!" and pulled out his press badge. The guards hesitated, then waved them in. Just before the doors closed, one of the suited men lunged. Lori fired a warning shot into the air. "Back off!" she screamed. The man stopped, eyes furious. Inside the museum, Marcus caught up to Emily and Evan. His chest heaved. He hadn't run like that in years. "We have to move fast," he said. "The press needs this now." Evan pulled a tablet from his bag. "Already uploading. I'm connected to our newsroom's secure cloud. Once it's up, it's out of their hands." The upload began 1%, 2%. The seconds felt like hours. Meanwhile, outside, more black SUVs pulled up. A swarm of men in suits and uniforms spread across the park. Marcus peeked out a side window. "They brought everyone. This isn't just damage control. They're here to shut it down permanently." 10%, 15%. In the museum lobby, whispers spread. People started noticing the commotion outside. Some pulled out phones, others took pictures. Evan looked up. "If they touch us now, it'll be everywhere." 25%, 30%. Suddenly, gunfire. From the west side of the museum, a window shattered. A guard fell. "They're breaching," someone shouted. Panic rippled through the crowd. Screams erupted. People scattered. Marcus pushed Emily and Evan toward the back hallway. "Upstairs," he said. "Archives room. Reinforced doors. We hold there." They ran, ducking bullets, dodging panicked visitors. Once in the archives room, Marcus slammed the thick metal door shut and bolted it. The lights flickered. Outside, heavy footsteps grew louder. Evan stared at the tablet. 42%, 43%. "We don't have time," he shouted. Marcus raised his gun. "We buy it." Emily found an old wooden chair and braced it under the door handle. Lori checked her revolver. 2 rounds left. The door thudded. "Open it," a voice demanded. Marcus fired a shot through the wall. Not a chance. 55%, 60%. Outside, someone shouted orders. Then silence. Emily looked at Marcus. "What are they doing?" "Listening. Planning. They want to finish this quietly." The silence broke with a boom. They were using a battering ram now. Evan backed up against the wall. Almost there. 68%, 69%, 70%. The door cracked. A piece of wood flew off. The metal bolts shook. "They'll break through," Lori said. "I know," Marcus replied. "We hold." The banging grew louder. Then came the final blow. The door burst open. Men in black flooded in. Marcus shot one in the chest. Lori hit another in the leg, but there were too many. A third man tackled Evan. The tablet flew from his hands, sliding across the floor toward Emily. She grabbed it and ran to the corner, shielding it with her body. 78%, 79%, 80%. A hand grabbed her hood and yanked her backward. She screamed, kicked, bit, everything. Marcus fought with two attackers, blood running down his arm. Lori was dragged down. One of the men raised a gun to Emily. But then flashing lights outside, police sirens, a helicopter overhead. Dozens of real officers poured through the museum. Someone had called them. Media crews were filming. Cameras aimed at the chaos. The attackers froze too late. Evan crawled to the tablet, pressed send. Upload complete, all the files, all the names, all the crimes, released to the world. The men in black started to retreat, but it was over. Within minutes, real officers arrested them. Marcus collapsed beside Emily, breathing hard. "You did it," she nodded, shaking. "I'm tired," she whispered. 2 weeks later, Emily Carter stood in front of a courtroom packed with cameras. Her face was steady. Behind her, Marcus, Lori, and Evan sat in the front row. On the screen above the judge's bench, footage played. The files from the flash drive, statements from girls, emails between top officials. The city had exploded in outrage. Robert Jensen had been arrested. So had Daniel Knox. More than 30 people connected to the abuse network were in custody. Trials were already being scheduled. The judge turned to Emily. "Is there anything you'd like to say?" She nodded. "I was told to stay quiet, to disappear, but I didn't, and now they're the ones who are gone." If you like this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, in other, to strengthen our community, let us know in the comments where you are watching from and what time you are currently watching this video.